Hey guys, I know it's been a while, but yes, the Nissan Xterra is still running fine. It's just winter time. Usually I end up doing home improvement and some landscaping stuff when it gets into spring. And that made me think of this project, which is going to be an overview of some winching basics, more so for people that are less familiar with winches. I'm actually using my winches to pull out a bunch of shrubs. I'm redoing an entire landscape area. So this is going to be kind of a hybrid video, how to pull out old shrubs with a winch. But this is mostly going to be towards just an overview of a winch. If you're less familiar with them, maybe you're new to off-roading and modifying 4x4 vehicles. And so this is going to give you a little overview into what a winch does. So I will go ahead and just touch on some of the stuff specific to the landscaping side of things. There are some shrubs that have a very shallow root structure where a winch can just straight up pull it out of the ground. I know I've had success with juniper shrubs where the winch that I have, which is a 9,000 pound Badlands winch from Harbor Freight, and I was able to just pull most of those shrubs straight out of the ground without doing any extra digging. These, on the other hand, requires a couple extra steps to loosen up the base enough to even have the winch pull it out. First thing to notice to get a shrub out is go ahead and take off all of the top so you can actually have access to the stump. I actually like to leave a little bit taller on the stump here, but this should be enough to wrap a strap around it. Now really what you got to do is find the outer circle of where the root structure is kind of ending and where the stump ends and where it's just kind of outshoots of roots. So the tools that I use, pickaxe, I use the pick end of the axe, go down into the dirt, and you can kind of find out where the roots are. I try and do that in a circle around the overall base of the shrub. Try and break up the dirt, get up underneath the roots, and find out where the larger roots are. Once I do that, I use a sawzall, specifically one with a longer blade, 9 to 12 inches. It can kind of plunge into the ground. Of course, call before you dig or before you cut underground. Don't cut a utility line or anything. But go in that kind of same circle that you tried to pick out with the pickaxe. That'll cut off a lot of the roots on the outside. Now you can take a shovel. I've got a narrow trenching shovel here. Try and get up underneath it some. Now of course this is really just the start of digging it out by hand, but specific for these shrubs, the root structure is very heavy. So it's going to be a lot easier to pull it out with the winch. Just go around the sides that you already cut and try and separate where the dirt starts and the root structure begins. So I'm thinking that I have that prepared for the winch now. As you can see, still can't even move it by hand. But by separating enough of the dirt and the roots, makes it easier for a big winch to pull it out. So now I'm going to focus more on the actual techniques of winching. First of all, I mentioned earlier, I've got a 9,000 pound Harbor Freight Badlands winch. If you use a snatch block, which is just a pulley, you can actually multiply that by 2 and get an 18,000 pound pull on your truck. But what that means though is that if you're pulling your truck with 18,000 pounds, you need to be able to hold on to that winch onto your truck. That means that this is not just a purely plug and play type of modification. You can't just buy a winch and drop it in there. You're going to need some level of fabrication to install a winch plate, which is going to be welded into your frame rails or a heavy duty off-road bumper. So to pull a shrub out, hopefully you left yourself enough actual structure from the stump of the tree essentially to get a strap wrapped around it. I'm just going to wrap the strap. Then I'm going to pull it tight. I'm going to make sure I get underneath any of these branches around the base so that way it doesn't just flop over. Or wrap it 2 or 3 times. Try and get a good hold on it. Now because I have a nylon strap that just got loops on the end, I can just hold these loops together and that gives me a good target to hook the hook of the end of the winch line to it. So most winches are going to have a couple of controls on the actual winch itself. In my case, it has a remote control with the in and out button and it's got a cord on it. So whenever you need to use it, you need to take your cord out and you need to reach back there and plug it in. So the important thing here is however you decide to mount your winch, access is important. My bumper's a little difficult to get to here. It's kind of a blind plug-in. I have to kind of feel back there and find where the plug goes. Alright, so now that I've got that plugged in, I can hit the out button to send the cable out, or I can hit the in button to bring the cable in. Now, say you got to drag your cable 30 feet, you're not going to want to sit here and hold the out button. So there is a clutch assembly or a clutch lever in here, and that basically unlocks the spool of the rope or the line from the actual electric motor. So my clutch mechanism is this stainless steel lever right here. You twist it one way to disengage the spool, and then you twist it back when you want to actually winch. But now that the clutch is disengaged, I can go ahead and pull the winch line out. Always wear gloves and try to avoid grabbing the stainless steel cable by the actual cable. Grab it by the hook. You don't want to frayed into the cable to cut your hand open. Now it can just free spool. Now that I have the length of winch line that I need, I can go ahead and engage the clutch, and that locks it all together. Now I know Dennis does this in Jurassic Park, where you just take your winch cable, you wrap it around a tree, and then you hook it to yourself.
You got time, you can do it. Do it. Come on, Dennis.
You don't want to do that though. A winch cable is designed to be really strong in a pure tensile pulling motion, but it's not going to be good to hook it to itself. That induces a big bending type of load on it. That can weaken the cable and cause it to break. So since you don't want to do that, again, you want to use looped ends of the strap. So I take my long strap for a shrub and I wrap it up several times around the base of the shrub, and then I hook the hook through both ends of the loop. If I'm doing like an off-road recovery pool, I have a shorter strap. It's about 6 feet long and it's very wide. It's called a tree saver strap, and that just distributes the load of the tensile strength of the winch cable into a larger surface area on the tree, so you don't damage the tree, and it also makes it easy to hook onto a tree so you don't have to hook onto your cable. Now, because a winch line pulls very strong, you want to put something that's kind of weighted on the winch line, either like a floor mat, or I use my tree saver strap or another strap and kind of wrap it around the steel cable just in case the hook breaks and it sends things flying. It'll kind of prevent the cable from turning into a whip. Because a winch is an electrical load on the engine and alternator, I usually leave the engine running to keep the battery charged while I'm winching. And also, just due to safety concerns of a winch line breaking, make sure that no one else is around, and I sit in the vehicle because I'd rather a broken hook or winch cable hit my windshield than my face. Now in this situation where I'm the anchor vehicle, I'm not trying to pull my vehicle forward. I'm going to put my vehicle in neutral, and I'm going to hold the brake and the parking brake all the way down. I don't want this intense load being pulled onto the transmission into the parking gear. I want to try and hold everything with the brakes, and you'll probably see the front end of the vehicle diving down quite a bit. Now I'm up against the curb, so I have an extra wheel chock to help my vehicle stay put. You may not have that in an off-road recovery situation though. So you can kind of tell on that winch pull, it basically stalled out the winch, and that was a direct 9,000 pound pull basically. That was full winch capacity. I could hear the roots kind of creaking like it was ready to get pulled out, so I just left it and I held it. And then it creaked a little bit more, and then it finally broke free, and then just one more tug from the winch line and it just came tumbling down the hill, no problem. So the last thing that I'll show you is a quick rigging on how to use a snatch block, which is a pulley which can double your pull strength. So a snatch block is just a pulley that allows you to route your winch line through it. So I've got the main line coming out of the middle of the winch. You can see I have my strap around the tree shrub, or this can also be used in off-road recovery if you need to change the angle, or say I've been in a situation where people were getting stuck in a ditch and the ditch had a very high wall on it, so I needed to get a more vertical pull. So I was able to put one up in a tree and route the winch line up and then back down to the front of the vehicle, so that way the winch pull is pulling them up the wall instead of straight into the wall. But basically I got a D-ring shackle here hooked around the strap, and this allows you to route your hook back to your vehicle, in which you attach it to another solid anchor point on the actual vehicle. Now this allows you to double your winch line because you have 9,000 pounds going through each strand, because both ends of it are anchored to your vehicle. At the flip side, you're coming at the expense of speed. So say for every 12 inches of line that you pull in, your vehicle's only moving 6 inches forward. So that's an example of how you could increase your pull strength using the snatch block. I didn't really need it in this case, but for demonstration purposes, and again, the pulley can increase your overall pull strength, but it can also redirect your winch line pull. Those are all the basic kind of tips, tricks, and overview of how I use a winch. Honestly, I bought it for four-wheeling, and so far my tree and shrub count is about 24, and my stuck vehicle count is like 2. So it's actually a really good way to rationalize an expensive mod if you think that you're going to be doing some landscaping, or you might need some other utility to be able to winch things around your house or your property. So thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoy the content of these videos. Comment below if you have suggestions for future videos, and we'll be getting back to Nissan Xterra content here shortly.